Okay, the Lord just woke me up. It's about, sheesh, oh, it's 1:38. He's talking to me this evening, so usually he talks to me an hour or so. I guess I need to get up because I need to get up and talk about what he's talking to me about and make sure I preserve it for myself. So anyways, what the Lord's talking about this morning is about how to know God, how I've come to know God, and the essential, what the essential is. And the essential is knowing who you are and bringing that real relationship into your faith, your relationship with God, and it's your faith. So what I was recalling was, I don't know, 15 years ago, something like that. I'd already been a Christian, and for quite a few years, 20 plus years, 25, 26 years, and I really studied the Bible a lot. I knew the Bible, and I had the habit of, God waking me up and speaking to me at all hours of the night, and studying a lot. So I was pretty confident in my knowledge of God and my relationship with God. So, anyways, I was taking a shower, and I just realized a lot of the futility of what all this knowledge that I had amassed. I read a lot of history, philosophy. I read the Schaeffer and Lewis and the Christian intellectuals, and I knew what Aristotle thought, the ways of Aristotle, you should say, inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning, the difference between Plato and Aristotle. And anyway, I was well versed from the limited capacity I have for brain power. I'm not a genius by any means. But I had all this, and so it didn't get me anywhere, So I was taking a shower, like I said, I was taking a shower, talking to God, and I asked him, I said, well, first I made a statement, this is just, I know more than anybody I know. I don't have limited amount of people I know, but it doesn't, where has it gotten me, It hasn't got me where it's supposed to get me, a deeper relationship with you. Who am I is really what I was asking, and that's what I did ask him. I said, who am I to you? This is what I asked the Lord. I was in the shower, and so I got out, dried off, and started to get dressed and started to sit down. And God just spoke to me so very, very clearly, and He said, "You are a Mephibosheth to me." So, being a student of the Bible, I knew who Mephibosheth was, and I've gone over this many, many times. I thought over it. And so, who Mephibosheth was and who he thought he was. So he was the son of, or the grandson of Saul. He was the last living heir of Saul, and he was a cripple. And he'd been in hiding with the fear of death. All of his uncles had been murdered by people who trying to, get on David's good side. So he lived in fear his whole life of being murdered, being killed. Because, he was born into an enemy camp. He was born on the wrong side of right. And he was called before David, who was on the right side of right. He was in God's camp, and Saul's family was in the enemy's camp. And that's where we are. We're all born. That's where I was born. I was born in the wrong camp. I wasn't born into the camp of God. I was born into the camp of the enemy. And because of that, I had a death sentence on me. So, which every human being has. So anyway, he comes to David and he goes, "Listen, I'm a dog. I'm a dog. Don't just ignore me." So, you call somebody a dog. That's not as bad as it is in Jewish culture when you call someone a dog. The Bible. This is a few things the Bible says about a dog. You know, a dog vomits and it goes and eats it up. He regurgitates and goes, "That looks pretty good." Eats it again. They're pretty much useless, senseless, dumb. One of the dumbest animals there is. I love dogs, but the Bible doesn't talk highly of dogs. So Mephibosheth says, "I'm a dog. I'm not a man. I'm a dog and not a man. Don't consider me a threat. Don't consider me a problem. I'm nothing." And he was nothing. He was a cripple who couldn't even, later we find he couldn't even, when the battle lines were drawn, he couldn't even get on a donkey to run away. He couldn't even run away from a battle, not much like fighting one. So, this is the prospect that I came before God as, and this is what He's telling me who I am. I'm telling Him who I am first. I've tried to serve you and done probably not the greatest job in the world, and I've tried to be a good person, and I've read my Bible, and I've gone to church, and I tried to do the best I could, and I ended up like another person in the Bible, Solomon, who said he tried to do everything right. And he said, "This has all been vanity. Everything I did was vanity. All my efforts were vanity. All my knowledge was vanity." And then he goes on to say that this is the gift of God, to seek God and to enjoy what He's given you in this life. That's God's gift to a man, not knowledge. He said knowledge is just vain. So anyways, I got on this for two reasons, I guess. The Lord's speaking to me because I've been thinking about some people I've been encountering. Ravi Zacharias is one. A guy named Del Thackett is another. Teachers. Her teaching that knowledge will get you there. If you study the Bible, if you study the world, if you study the philosophy, if you study science, and you interpret it to the Bible, then you'll have knowledge of God. You'll know God, and it's a dead end. We can't know our way up to God. We can't wrong side. Start here and start knowledge, knowing, and then attain the knowledge of God. So, God's got to come down. He's got to go. Everything's revelation. He's got to teach you. And that has really God had been teaching me like that for decades, but, I had to realize, God does stuff in our lives, we don't really see it. We don't really realize that that's the only methodology to know God is to experience Him. He's got to show us. And so anyways, this whole ideal of you can know God through wisdom, through seeking truth, is just it's vanity. It really is. It was vanity to Solomon. He acknowledged it, and it was vanity to me at this one point in my life. I acknowledged it, and then the acknowledgement is saying I can't do it. You have to do it. After 25 years, I know you. I know I knew God. I still know God, but to give up on this efforts that I was making, and I had been preaching against effort my whole life, but then participating in the effort of knowledge. So it's good to know the Bible, it's good to know the Word, but it's vain to think that that's the point. That's the real, what we really need to do. There was the wisest man in the Middle Ages. I don't know exactly when he lived, 1400s, 1300s, 1200s. There's a guy named Thomas Aquinas. He was one of the most brilliant men ever to live, I think. He memorized the whole Bible. He memorized all the works of and everything he could find on science. So he memorized Plato, Aristotle, all the Greek philosophers, the Roman philosophers, and he meshed them together and made a way of understanding the world that human beings use this for hundreds of years. If you wanted to know how the world worked, you read your Thomas Aquinas, and people studied him. Millions of people. So if you're a scholar after him, you wanted to know, you studied Thomas Aquinas. So as the story goes, I just heard this, I never read it, that at the end of Thomas Aquinas' life, he said what Solomon said and what I said in the shower. He said, because he had an encounter with God at the end of his life. And he said, everything I did was vain. It was all vanity. Because when I met God, he just shattered all these misconceptions that I've established in my mind and my theologies and my understanding, my human wisdom. It was all garbage. People still studied him for hundreds of years because he had the best answers for the carnal mind. And his big problem was, he said, his theology was, well, the mind was not tainted by sin, so you can use the mind to know God. And then at the end he goes, well, I guess it was. I finally got to know God, but it was because God came down and spoke to me, not because I learned enough to get to him. That's religion. Learning about God, theology, and learning all your stuff is religion. Well, you need religion, and you need it mixed with revelation. To have a mass of knowledge is fine, but to think that mass of knowledge is anything except for car parts. You can amass all your car parts. God's got to put those car parts together through his revelation. He's got to speak to the heart. He's got to talk to you like he talked to me. And he goes, like he talked to me tonight. He goes, but 15 years ago, he goes, you're Mephibosheth. I don't need you. You're not pertinent to my plans. You're a dog. I'm God. And I can use dogs, but I don't need dogs. But the great story of Mephibosheth is that David, the king who represented God, said, come, come into my court. He says 3 times, he says, you will, 3 times to Mephibosheth, he says, you will sit at my table forever. 3 times. You say something 3 times in the Bible, that means holy, holy, holy. It's established. It ain't going to change ever. That's something that's written in stone, or written in heaven, I should say. So that was, he was surrounded by, he was surrounded by all these David's mighty men and the wise men, the council men, and all the. But how he got there was because of the deeds of, not his deeds. He had no deeds. He had because of the deeds of his father, who was Jonathan. And Jonathan was faithful to David. So you have a picture of, and Jonathan ended up laying his life down in faithfulness. So you have a picture of Christ, of Christ and David. I mean, in Jonathan. You have a picture of God on his throne in David, and you have a picture of his son Jonathan. Jesus is a symbol of, Jonathan's a symbol of Jesus Christ. And that I got into the court of David. This is what God spoke to me in my heart. God got into his court through the deeds of Jonathan, his, God's son. So, and I was secure there. So I was, it had a profound, did something profound to my soul when I meditated upon that. And then later, years later, he told me everybody's Jonathan. Not everybody's Jonathan. Everybody is Mephibosheth. Every Christian on this earth is Mephibosheth. God doesn't need us, but we have to. How do we come to him? We come to him with this prospect, this position. I'm a dog. I'm not. I'm not good. I'm not worthy. I have no credentials to bring you. You don't. God didn't love. David didn't love Mephibosheth because of any natural union with him. He came from a different family. Because of the deeds of his father. And I get there because of the deeds of Christ. Because of the deeds of Christ, I'm welcome into that courtyard. It has nothing to do with me at all. So that is both humbling and glorious. It takes a load off your spirit. What do I have to do? If somebody else did it for me, this is what I have to do. So I have to believe in the deeds of another. I have to believe that my Jonathan, who was Christ, did enough. He did enough so that the king, David, would honor what he did, not what I did. So I'm just this child following along. Got a free ride. Okay, so I think that's it.